I came from a really poor neighborhood and was just glad I was in college. I mean, because that was an accomplishment in and of itself. I don't think I really understood the idea of leaving. Like, it never really occurred to me to go anywhere else.
You just heard LaDonna Lewis from Glendale Community College in Glendale, Arizona. My podcast partner, Garth Neufeld, interviewed LaDonna for episode number 153 of Psych Sessions, Conversations about Teaching and Stuff. Stay tuned for so much more.
You can make an impact with PsychLearn. PsychLearn from the American Psychological Association is a complete all-digital instructional resource for psychology courses. PsychLearn's coverage of research methods and statistics drives deeper engagement than traditional printed textbooks, immersing students in multidimensional learning experiences with engaging content for practice and formative assessment. Structured around applied cognitive science, PsychLearn helps students gain confidence in their understanding of foundational concepts and build toward critical learning outcomes. Learn more about PsychLearn's course material for research methods and statistics for the behavioral sciences when you visit pl.apa.org/sessions. That's PL for PsychLearn, pl.apa.org/sessions. The Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by Macmillan Learning Psychology. Settle into a new school year with Macmillan Learning's Achieve for Psychology. Achieve for Psychology allows instructors to easily integrate assessments, activities, and analytics into teaching. Achieve sets a new standard for teaching by engaging every student and supporting every instructor. Achieve is offering exclusive digital activities for each title, created by the authors, all new goal-setting reflection surveys to check in with students, and a new video collection for introductory psychology. With 220 in-demand videos, including classic clips, contemporary footage, and exclusive original content. These features are just a few of Achieve's suite of reports and insights, and another example of how Achieve goes well beyond just delivering first-rate class-to-class course materials. Experience these yourself and tell us what you think. See a preview and get involved at macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions. The Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by STP. That is the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. That's APA Division 2. You can find them at teachpsych.org. The views or product endorsements expressed do not represent the views, support, or endorsements of STP. Psych Sessions is so grateful to have STP as a long-term supporter. It is such a pleasure to be here today with Dr. LaDonna Lewis from Glendale Community College. You're still community college there in Glendale, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. In Glendale, Arizona. And that's just, that's like Phoenix, Glendale, right there, right?
Right, yep.
Okay. What's the difference between Glendale and Phoenix from a local's perspective?
It's funny you should ask that. Glendale has like lots of antique shops, and it's just kind of more, I don't know if I want to say laid back city.
Oh, interesting.
But then Phoenix is just, the big city. Phoenix is the big city. Glendale's, we're the neighbor. Oh, we do have lots of entertainment. The Cardinals are in Glendale, and there's that. So there's entertainment districts. And as a Canadian, I must mention that the Coyotes are in Glendale as well, but maybe not for long. Yeah, not anymore, unfortunately.
Are they already gone?
Yeah, they've already moved.
Oh,
they're in Tempe now.
Okay, they're in Tempe now. All right.
Yeah, all right. They're playing at the ASU, where the Arizona State University hockey, at least for this coming season, that's where they're going to play.
How far is Tempe from?
I don't know, 20 miles maybe.
Oh, that's not far. It's not far.
No, it's not terribly far.
Yeah, because, Seattle I'm going to bore you and everybody listening, but Seattle just got a hockey team this last year, but Seattle is insanely expensive. And so to go see my favorite hockey team, like the cheapest tickets you're going to find are $150, $200. But if I fly to Phoenix with that $150 to $200, I can see my hockey team for about $20.
That's probably true. Although where the Coyotes are playing this season, the arena only has like 5,000 seats in it.
Oh, so
it's going to be, I have no idea what that's going to be like. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes with ticket prices.
Yeah. Have you been in, I know you've been at Glendale for just over 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
At Glendale Community College. Is that as long as you've lived there? You came there for that job?
I came actually sort of. I mean, I didn't actually come here for the job.
Okay.
So yeah, I moved here for personal reasons because of my spouse.
Yeah.
So I started... When I moved here, I worked at Mesa Community College, which is one of the sister colleges. So
yeah, we know people from Mesa in the
STP
community.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah. Okay,
that's where I started. That's kind of how I got involved with some of the things I'm involved with. I was working with Ann Ewing, who was at Mesa at the time. I think she's retired now, but and she was very involved in a bunch of APA stuff. And that's kind of how I got involved because I was working with her. But that's where I started. I worked there for 2 years, and then I moved over to Glendale.
All right. I've been at Glendale ever since. I want to get that whole story because staying at an institution for 20 years, that's quite an accomplishment. Like some folks do that, I guess, but this day and age, people move around in institutions. Yep. So we'll have to ask what kept you there, what has kept you there for so long. So I'm excited for a couple of reasons to talk to you. First of all, there's just the West Coasters, us West Coast people. I consider you West Coast, you're a little one, but
okay.
The Western time zone, I feel like there's just so few of us in the, I know there's probably hundreds of us in the STP community, but we're so East Coast heavy, just like I think population is probably. But so I know that the last time I saw you at was at WPA in Portland.
Yes,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Is that your regional conference? Do you go to that one regularly?
Yeah, usually that's the one I go to.
Okay.
For regional things. At WPA, sometimes we take students too. So that's
right. And you take students through Psi Beta, or do you take students through? Okay.
Yeah, usually through Psi Beta.
Okay. Which we're also going to get into. But I was like trying to think about where did I first meet you? Do you remember the conference that we first, or was it APA? What was it that we've?
It might have been APA. I honestly don't know because I think we've crossed paths in a lot of different, ways.
Yeah.
So it must have been an APA thing.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So where is your kind of, apart from Glendale Community College, where's home for you? Where do you spend most of your service hours these days?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it research? Is it Psi Beta?
I'm not all that involved in Psi Beta anymore.
Okay.
So I do enjoy the research. And right now, that involves working with probation departments, adult probation departments, and doing some things there. So that's probably, where I spend a lot of time.
I was fascinated because as many times as we've crossed paths, I don't think we've sat down to actually have a conversation. So it's like unwrapping a gift every time I get to have a conversation with someone because they have these really interesting backgrounds. Like I know that I think you have a consulting service or something like that you kind of do.
That's true.
But this kind of adult probation, how did you get interested in that? And I guess, what should we know? This seems like a very interesting area of research.
It really is. And to be honest, it's because of my spouse. So that's how I got into it.
Right.
So my wife is an adult probation officer.
Okay.
In Maricopa County, Arizona, which is Phoenix.
Yep.
And so basically what has happened is over the years, I've learned a lot about this area. And it came to the point where she realized that that officers were experiencing things like all these stressful events on their caseloads with their people, and nobody was talking about it. Nobody was addressing it. And so she got interested in it, and she wanted to do some research in this area, but wasn't, sure how to do that. And that's my background. It's like, I know how to do research. How about we design something? So we designed a study to basically just ask people a bunch of questions about events on their caseloads, and we use some existing measures of burnout and compassion fatigue and some other things just to see if there were relationships. And we looked at how long they'd been on the job. We ended up collecting data from over 700 probation officers in that initial study, looking at these things. And that's just kind of what launched it. So we did this study, and then out of that, there was interest in how do we mitigate these things. And then that's when we started the consulting.
So you work with the adult probation. I think initially when I saw that, thought you were working with, I don't know if they're called probationers, but I thought you were working on that side, but you're working on the kind of the services. And are they services now?
Well, sort of,
yeah.
It's hard to describe, really.
I guess public service, right?
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
On the probation side, and
with the officers.
Yeah, and how many years ago, or how many years have you been looking into this?
Must be now 12, 13 years. Yeah.
So, okay, here's a side story. I was on a golf course recently, and there was a foursome of women who were behind us, and we got caught up at a hole. And I said, we just got into conversation. I said, what are you doing? And they said, we're celebrating. It's this woman's retirement from the Seattle Police Department. And so I was talking with her, and I just said, so what's the environment right now in policing in Seattle? And she said, I'm so happy to be retired. It's just been a really hard last decade.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And which is interesting, because I think that's on our radar now, that we see that policing is a very, very difficult job. I'm guessing that there's a lot of like that a probation officer has some of the same kinds of, burnout factors and those kinds of things. But you all, we also see, I think we see the shadow side of policing as well, but we just see that it's really hard with the current state of America. But what always strikes me is when people are researching this 10 years before everybody else knew in the general public. I mean, I think your wife knew that it was hard and there's burnout, and that's why you guys were looking into that. But I always just find it fascinating when research is like, my psychology friends are just about a decade ahead. I've seen that. I just talked with, okay, hold on. Don't do it, Garth. Jasmine Mena. I almost forgot her name. I was just talking with Jasmine Mena, and I said, you were on her. You do. I know you do research in race and bias and some of the stereotype and those things. She was doing some of those things in pedagogy and teaching, before the rest of us, I should just talk about me, woke up to all of this. And so anyway, what is it like, and what do we need to know? And what did you learn from the last, 12 years of research and on this topic?
Well, one of the things I've learned is that officers don't really talk about their, the impacts on them, because it's seen as sort of weakness. In some ways, probation officers are similar to police officers like that. It's just not something you talk about. It's not something you do. And in getting them to sort of open up, one of the best ways to get them to talk about and come to terms with the stress and of their job is to explain some of the biology, behind it, the physiological reactions that we have to stress, and sort of make it something that's not, that they don't see as there's something wrong with me, that part of it, but that this is a natural reaction to what I'm experiencing is the way we want them to see it. And then how do I cope with that? What do I do as a result of my body reacting to the fact that I'm going into people's homes and they're in bad situations, and I'm dealing with victims of crime. My guy I had on my caseload, just committed a new offense, and there was nothing I could do to stop that. Those kinds of experiences are hard for people, and they're going to have reactions to that. So how do they deal with that? How do they feel supported by their agency? Things like that. Those are ways that we can try to help mitigate their stress response a little bit so that they feel like the stress is it's normal and natural. And how do they cope with it instead of trying to shut it down, which can just make it worse. So, so I've learned that focus on sort of the physiological stuff seems to work best for them anyway, because it makes them feel less like there's something wrong with them. It's like, my body's supposed to react this way, and it would be bad if I didn't, care. So that would be bad.
That interesting.
And, the fact that I care means I'm going to be stressed. So
I'm sure some of them. You must teach intro psych being at a community college.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. And isn't this the gift we want to give to our future probation officers, even at 18 years old, that we can teach these things? I had a friend say to me recently, he said, there are people who know what you know, Garth, who go into these kinds of situations and educate people based on your kind of foundational knowledge in psychology. And we almost forget that it's very helpful to our students. It's also very helpful to people in the workforce who are dealing with these kinds of things. And so is this are you visiting from time to time agencies or offices where you are able to do some of this training with folks?
Well, mostly, actually, my wife does more of it. And part of the reason for that is because she has, in terms of the hands-on training part, because she's an officer, she has a level of credibility with them that I don't have. Because I'm kind of an outsider. And that's another thing. It's really kind of interesting to see that dynamic play out in these workplaces. It's like, I come in there, I'm a college professor. What do I know? I don't have a caseload. I don't, and I've never been a probation officer. I don't know. But she has a credibility I don't have in that regard. So when she goes in and she talks about these things and she normalizes their experience because she can say it's happened to her too, it makes a big difference. So a lot of the hands-on stuff she does. I do more of the behind the scenes researchy stuff. For lack of a better term, I do more of that. So if we want to collect some data, I'll do that.
So when are you using this data mostly for the two of you to approach these agencies and say, hey, here's what's going on, and we think we can help, or I think I can help. Or is this going through kind of that traditional research path of going to the literature, getting peer reviewed and getting published somewhere? And then which way is it going? Straight to services or?
Well, I mean, we originally did the publishing path. We did that first. And then now it's more services. More of the services path now than it was before. And actually, I mean, the nice thing is my wife has done a couple of, some trainings with some fairly large probation departments. And then the word spreads where other people want that. So they want to have like a peer support team, or they want to have these things that she can help them with. So really, we don't have to do a whole lot. People come to us and say, hey, we heard you're doing this. We heard it was really good. This other department got this. We really want to have this. Can you help us? And so then she'll do the hands-on training part. I'll do the behind the scenes, like if they want a climate survey or if they want, something like that, I can do that part.
So you can come in ahead of time and grab some data on their population,
right,
and then address it with them.
And then address it. That's
fantastic. Oh,
yeah, it's really interesting work. It's really fun. It's very time consuming. We don't get to do a whole lot of it because we both have full-time jobs. So
right. Yeah, that's a side hustle. Hey, yeah, that's good.
It's totally on the side. I mean, it's something we do on evenings and weekends. And
do you at least get to go see some places while you're doing it?
We did. Lately we haven't.
I mean,
COVID kind of put, that aside. But yeah, I mean, we've been to Alaska, been to a lot of places I can't imagine, especially for her, because she does the hands-on stuff that she would have gone otherwise. Lots of different states.
Is your sense that that the mentality is changing for these agencies, and they're seeing the need for this in order to keep their people kind of high functioning and from burnout? Is there recognition?
I think the ones who want to keep their workforce are changing. I think yes, but I think it's hard too, because there's lots of traditions in a lot of these departments, sort of like police departments, in terms of, what the hierarchies are like and how things have been for a really long time, that's how it's done. Most agent companies are like that. I mean, so that these agencies are like that is no different, really.
Right.
So change is hard, but I think that with younger employees coming in who have different sets of expectations about what work should be like, it is forcing, I think, some of the agencies to figure out what to do to keep them, because it's getting more and more challenging, and they expect to be supported when they are at work and, things are tough. They expect that support to be there. And if it's not, then it's going to be problematic. They're going to be leaving. So.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately, it's good. It's good for the agency. It's good for the services that they provide. It's good for the public, right? To have good functioning and healthy workforces. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I was just thinking about my first job after I finished my graduate degree, and I was collecting hours because my area is counseling, and so I was kind of collecting hours, and I worked at a middle school in basically a just kind of offering services to at-risk youth, essentially. But I was partnered, so I ran this program in partnership with a probation officer, and I learned so much from her about it. But there was a whole world that she brought, and a whole, like a whole career. I was brand new into what I was doing and just trying to figure it out. But I couldn't believe the experiences that she had. I also, from her stories, understood why now she was working at a middle school. I think from a probationary perspective, it was probably a bit of a cushy job, but it's because she grinded for decades in the system. And, so it's so good for us to take care, or to think about how those folks are being taken care of. So is there anything else before I move us on from research on that? Is there anything the general public needs to know about, just that you think is interesting about probation officers? Most of us don't interact with that system too much, right?
Exactly. They are an interesting group of folks, because they straddle this line between law enforcement and social work. They're somewhere in between there, because they're dealing with people who've been convicted of felonies. Otherwise they wouldn't be on probation. So that's, right. That's their job. But they're trying to help them get on their feet, get jobs, get treatment if they're on drugs. At the same time, they have to be the watchdog, if the person is sliding back to whatever behavior got them on probation in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's awkward. And the other thing that I don't think people realize is that, somebody's on probation, they do something they're not supposed to do, go commit a crime or whatever. So the probation officer writes that up, takes them back to court. Sometimes the probation officer recommends the person be sent to prison. And the judge says, nah, I'm going to put him back on probation. And so they put this person back on your caseload who you just recommended should go to prison. So now they're a little mad at you
for
the fact that you just recommended they go to prison and they're on your caseload again and you have to keep working with them. So that happens all the time, like all the time. So that's where some of that stress comes from, is like some of it's just like, this person keeps breaking the law. I keep taking them back to court and the judge keeps putting them right back on my caseload. What am I supposed to do?
Right. Yeah.
So so it's an interesting circumstance.
I saw I think your area is social experimental. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I saw your social psychology brain kind of light up when you were saying this is a very interesting group of people.
Yeah, it is. They are a very interesting group of people.
Yeah. And
I love working with them. They're fun, but
that's great. Well, maybe you'll be fully accepted someday.
Maybe, but not yet. Right? I'm an outsider still.
Oh wow. Okay, so let me ask just about Psi Beta, because I think you were involved in that for a while. Is that right?
Yep, that's true.
Okay, and you've been at a community college for 20 years, and so I'm mostly personally interested. I always like to talk to you folks about kind of Psi Beta and how you got involved in that, and then maybe we'll backtrack into some other things in your life. But can you just talk about Psi Beta? How did you get involved in it? What were your roles? And then I'll ask you some follow-up questions.
Sure. Yeah. So, when I came to Glendale, there were they already had Psi Beta. So it actually preceded me, that the existence of our Psi Beta at Glendale was there when I got there. But, it's a lot of work being a Psi Beta advisor. And so we developed this sort of co-advisor model. So there'd be two advisors. And so shortly after I got to Glendale, I became a Psi Beta co-advisor with another faculty member. And the truth is, I'm always interested in working with students, and we were interested in getting students involved in research. That was just something that luckily, the faculty at Glendale were interested in, I was interested in. So it worked well. So I became co-advisor. And it just sort of naturally happened. It's hard for me to explain how I became involved in Psi Beta, because it just happened. I think it was here. I was here. It's like, I want to help work with those students. And the Psi Beta students are just fantastic. They're so motivated and smart and interesting, and they want to be involved in psychology, and they want to learn, and they want to do research, and they want to have guest speakers, and they want to, they want all these things. And so it was really easy to get involved. So that's basically what happened. That was fairly soon after I came to Glendale. I'd been here maybe a year or two. And then I was co-advisor for a few years. It wasn't terribly long, because we've always got more people who are interested in being involved in Psi Beta. But even though I wasn't, once I wasn't co-advisor anymore, I was still involved, like helping the students. Sometimes there were a couple of times when I helped students do research projects that they did on their own, like I was their mentor or faculty, person who helped them do the research, so that they could take it to various places. There's like in our community college district, there was one of the community colleges would have a research poster, basically competition sort of thing, annually. And it involved several different disciplines participated. Psychology was one of them. And there would be judges who would judge the research, and they actually give awards. So we had students who wanted to do that, who wanted to do research they could take to this local conference. And so I would help with that. And then we also have students who are in Psi Beta that we take to the regional conference, usually WPA. And we get the college to pay for it, which is great. so they can
nice.
Go. Yeah.
You have that kind of support still for your students there?
Yeah. So we get support through the student government.
Oh, cool.
There was some funding, and that's how we were getting support for Psi Beta. So,
yeah. So I've been wanting to take the plunge, except, Glendale's pretty big, right? If I remember, Glendale Community College.
Yeah, we're pretty big.
Yeah, so we're not. So, um, and so I'm always just trying to pick the brains of folks who have done it before. And I went to a panel at MPA this last spring and heard a little bit more about Psi Beta. And it does seem like quite a commitment for students and for faculty to do it. What I hear, though, you saying about doing, like, some students doing their own research, that's not necessarily the norm. There is kind of more of these days, a kind of more of a traditional pathway for students to be kind of given research to participate in, right? And not as a participant, I'm sorry, but as a researcher.
Right.
But it sounds like you all were doing some from the ground up. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun too. I mean, it's a whole lot of work. But then we have, I have the advantage of being in the department where there's like 11 or 12 other full-time faculty, so it makes we can share the load.
Yeah.
In a different way. It's a different opportunity than a lot of people at community colleges have, because we're a fairly large department for a community college. So we share the load a lot.
Right. Okay. And so your students get this research experience. That's fantastic. And then do you ever hear back from your students who are a part of that?
Sometimes, yeah. And in fact, we used to, as a department, we had for a while, we had a department chair who would seek out that information from our former students and write it up every year. We had, this student went to this university, this student is doing that, and we'd get a little, not really a newsletter, but a little report of, what some of our students have accomplished. And that's always really nice when we hear back from somebody who's gone on and what they're doing now. It's great. But so yeah, sometimes it happens.
Were you a part of is there a psychology, was there a psychology club and Psi Beta, or was that the same thing on your campus?
We have technically both psychology club and Psi Beta, although they do their meetings together most of the time. I mean, they overlap pretty much. Yeah. Psychology club is just the students who are interested in Psi Beta, but they maybe haven't met the requirements yet. So they're in psychology club technically. And then when they meet the requirements for Psi Beta, then they can be inducted.
Requirements being like a methods course or
GPA,
stats course?
Yeah, the courses, I forget what, my mind just went blank.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to have taken whatever credit hours of psychology and their GPA.
Yeah. Were you part of club when you were in an undergraduate in psychology?
I was not.
Okay.
I never was. I wasn't. I was never participated in that stuff. I don't know why. It was different though. I mean, I guess it was just a different environment.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Oklahoma.
Oh, so you stayed around home, because I know I've read your webpage. I know that you did an undergraduate degree at the University of Oklahoma. Is that right?
I did.
And you did a master's degree at the University of Oklahoma?
I did.
And you stayed home for your PhD?
My PhD. Right. I think part of it was that I really didn't. I came from a really poor neighborhood and was just glad I was in college. I mean, because that was an accomplishment in and of itself. I don't think I really understood the idea of leaving. It never really occurred to me to go anywhere else.
Interesting.
I think was part of it because of sort of my background, and my family was there, and it just never occurred to me to go anywhere else. So I stayed at home.
What town or city did you grow up in?
I grew up in Oklahoma City.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
My wife's family hails from Oklahoma, but not the city. So, we've been out there. We've been out there and toured around. It's a really interesting little place. Yeah.
Where in Oklahoma?
I'm going to try to remember one thing that we went to these something called spiral mounds. Do you know what that
Oh,
is?
yeah. I know about those. Yeah.
Okay, so on a road trip, we went through those, and because my wife had these like great memories of being a kid and going to visit her grandma out in Oklahoma, and so we were on this road trip from Seattle. I think we went down to California, then we went all the
Wow.
way across to
Wow.
through Oklahoma, all the way to Tennessee, I think. And this is years ago. And she just talked about spiral mounds. She's so sentimental. And so we went to Spiral Mounds, and it was closed.
Oh,
We couldn't go
oh,
see it. So
that's too bad.
it's a my Canadian brain's saying First Nations, a Native American kind of heritage site, right? And
Yeah.
so and so I think they were kind of nearby there is kind of
Okay.
where she grew or where her family was.
Yeah.
But we went to Oklahoma City. I really liked Oklahoma City. We went to the memorial there at where the Oklahoma City bombing was. It was so beautiful. It was so meaningful. I just
Yeah.
love what they did there. We went there at night when it's all lit up and
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, this is me on a rabbit trail, but so Oklahoma City, you grew up in this, and
I
is that where your family is from? Like, had they been there for a couple generations or?
no, I think my dad's family has been in Oklahoma forever, as far as I know. My mom's family had come from Texas.
Okay.
So, but in that area, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where they were from, and they've been living in Oklahoma City. My family, my brother's still there. I mean, so yeah,
Are you a first generation college student in your family or?
I am.
Okay. Okay. What did your folks do there when you were growing up?
Yeah, my mom kind of bounced. She worked for the health department for a while. She was like a food health inspector,
Okay.
which she was the first African American woman in Oklahoma County to have that job.
Wow.
In Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, yeah,
That's
to have
cool
that
legacy.
job. So
Yeah.
that was exciting, and without a college degree. So
Yeah.
that was good. My dad worked for the city. He started out like driving a dump truck because he'd been to Vietnam actually, and then came back. So he was trained in how to operate heavy equipment. So when he came back, he started driving a dump truck for the city, and then kind of worked his way up through the ranks as far as he could without a college degree.
Right.
So,
Right. Did your folks talk about college to you? Like, what was education, elementary, high school like for you? Were they involved in it? Were you doing your own thing?
It's interesting. My mom was very involved. She was really focused on me getting an education. So that was important to her. So early on, she was homeroom mom. She, as best she could, participated, in what was going on at the school. And was involved. And lucky for me, I was good at school. So it was like, it was like a thing. I skipped the 5th grade. I was like, really, school was my thing.
Whoa. Were you aware
it.
of why it was your thing, or that you were just good at it and that's where you wanted to be? Were you reading books on the side in your free time? What were you doing?
Yes. I was one of those kids who read books. I actually read encyclopedias. Because they were so interesting to me. I mean, that's what I did in my spare time. It's crazy to think about now.
Yeah.
Because now I feel like that's not who I am anymore. Like my life is so different now, but I was a complete nerd. I was totally, school. And I think it was because I knew that was how I could get out of that environment with school. And I think that's because that was what I had been told. My mom was really on that. And if you want to be successful, here's what you need to do. And school was the thing. So
what was that environment like that it was kind of, it would be nice to escape? What was that?
It was poor. It was just, we were in an inner city neighborhood. And we didn't have a lot of things. We had a place to live. It was rented. My parents never owned a home. So, I mean, it was okay. I had family. That part was okay, but it was clear that, there were things I couldn't have. There were lots of things that we couldn't do just because we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to be able to leave that environment, and there was not necessarily on my street because everybody knew each other, but there was crime. People were involved in things they shouldn't have been involved in. I mean, it was that kind of neighborhood. It was the kind of neighborhood where you couldn't get it. Nobody delivered there. So if you wanted a pizza, you had to go get it. Like, nobody's going to come into this neighborhood, right? You can't get Chinese, delivered in this neighborhood. That doesn't happen. People don't come in there.
Yeah.
That's the kind of place, where I grew up, is the kind of place where people avoid that. They drive around that neighborhood, on the highway and make sure they don't get off. And while everybody knew each other on the street I lived on, I didn't feel like I was in danger of being a victim of a crime necessarily, but there was a lot of crime in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And your mom was reminding you that there is a way out of this.
Yeah, there's a way out. Here's your ticket, do this and you can get out of here. So that there was a lot of emphasis on that. So I did that and I was good at it.
Are you the oldest child?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
Okay.
I have a brother.
Sense. Yeah.
He's younger.
How many years younger?
He's 4 years younger than me.
4 years?
Yeah.
Did he love school too?
No. No, but he played basketball. So
okay.
That was his ticket. He actually, school was not necessarily his favorite thing.
Yeah.
But he was into sports. He played basketball. He was very good.
Yeah.
And he ended up going to college on a basketball scholarship.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. So you grow up, you're good at school. You must have had some teachers who are memorable for them to recognize that you had this drive and this ability, and then to skip you in one of your grades. They must have been paying attention, I imagine.
Yeah. I had some fabulous teachers.
Yeah.
For sure.
High school goes well for you as well. I imagine you have some people who are also showing you the ropes as to like what's next and what you can do.
Yeah, I had one of my teachers in particular, Mr. Metzer. We're actually still Facebook friends.
Oh.
He was, I know, and I'm 53 years old. So high school was a long time ago, but he taught, it would have been 1985, maybe. So a long time ago. He actually taught psychology at the high school where I went to school. And I took that class. It turns out he had a bachelor's degree in psychology, I think. But anyway, we're still in touch, but he was really inspiring. That's how I discovered psychology, was through him. That it was so interesting. I mean, as a class, I took that class in high school and I thought, this is really interesting. I don't know. Maybe I want to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did that stick through the end of high school? And did you go to the University of Oklahoma? Oh, University of Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you go there as a psych major immediately?
I didn't.
Okay.
So I took, Mr. Metzer taught both psychology and sociology, and I liked them both. Mm-hmm. And I thought sociology was kind of interesting too. But growing up where I grew up, I just wanted a job where I was going to make lots of money. So when I started college, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought that's how you make money. I'll be a lawyer. Plus, lots of people in my family needed a lawyer. So that seemed like a good, quite frankly. So it seemed like a good career choice. And so when I started, I wasn't a psychology major at the very beginning, but I switched pretty quickly. I thought I might major in sociology and then go to law school. And I took the very first sociology class, whatever, Sociology 101 or whatever. I don't remember what it was called. And I just didn't like it. It was like, I don't like this nearly as much as psychology. Why don't I just be a psychology major? It wasn't my thing. Yeah. Psychology was a better fit. So I switched. And then I didn't really want to be a lawyer anymore.
Right. So you thought maybe psychology as a pathway to law because you probably figured out you needed to do additional school after your undergraduate degree or whatever. And then you sort of let that go. Yeah.
I decided, I don't think law is for me either. This psychology stuff's pretty cool. The more I got into it, it's like, I wonder if I could just do this. What would that look like?
And was anybody advising you at this time, stepping in and saying, like, here's what you could do?
Yeah, my junior year of college, that did happen. I had a professor, Dr. Wanda Ward, who I still remember. And she really sort of helped to guide me. You know, I was in her class. I forget what her class was called, but it was a social psychology class. It had to do with racism, and it was fascinating. And she got me into a seminar with Cornel West, which was amazing.
I love Cornel West.
I know, isn't he something? And this was like, late 1980s.
Wow.
And he was coming to campus and doing these like really small seminars with students where you'd have 15 or 20 students and Cornel West. And I think it was like 2 weeks. And she got me into it. She's like, would you be interested in this? And I thought, okay. And I wasn't even quite sure who Cornel West was. I mean, I was, a teenager, really didn't really know, but it's like, okay, sure. I'd be interested in that. She helped to get me in it. And that was, once I did that, it's like, there was no going back. Social psychology was the way I was going to go. After that seminar with Cornel West, it was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Do you remember anything from that time with him? Like any conversations?
All I remember is just being in awe of him.
Yeah.
Like, he's so smart and so interesting, and everything that he says, you're just hanging on every word.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing. And like, I remember just being blown away by this guy. It's like, this guy is the real deal. Like, he's amazing. And I'm in a class with him, and it took me about 10 minutes of being in the room with him to figure out what a privilege it was. It's like, I can't believe I made it into this. You know? It was amazing.
Yeah. So, I just saw him on a talk show recently again, and I've seen him in person a couple times. And, also there's like, I don't know if it was like this way in the late 80s, but, there also this, just a kindness and a wisdom that this guy brings to, it's like, in all the everything that we are facing as a country now, especially politically and stuff, he seems to have found a way through. At least I don't know. I love listening to him talk. He doesn't align with our former president, and he calls him
right,
but he calls him Brother Trump.
I know.
It's like there's some deep wisdom there when you can get to that point. But
amazing.
Well, cool. So that kind of sold you social psychology.
It did, even though, I mean, obviously he's not a social psychologist, but
sociologist, I think, right?
It just put everything together. It just brought everything that I was trying to do.
Oh, it's so
my brain was working on all came together in that seminar.
Oh, it's weird how one kind of moment, one experience can do that at really important times in our lives. So you're majoring in psych, and then how do you get to do a master's degree? How do you decide to do that?
Well, my junior year is coming to an end. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do career-wise. And I was working with Dr. Ward, and I thought, I kind of want to be her. Like, she was amazing, she was exactly who I wanted to sort of emulate. And she was a professor. And I thought, what do I have to do that? So that's kind of how it happened. And at the University of Oklahoma. So, I went through the application cycle the next, year and got in to graduate school. And I didn't apply anywhere else, which was probably not the smartest thing to do. But anyway, that's how my brain was working at the time. I thought, I just want to be here. I want to do this. So I applied during that next cycle, and I got in, and I was working with Dr. Ward, who was my advisor for the first year of graduate school. And at Oklahoma, the way it worked at the time, you got admitted to the PhD program. They didn't have a terminal master's.
Okay.
So it was a PhD program, and you earned your master's along the way.
Okay.
So that was what I did. So I got admitted to the PhD program, and and the master's was just part of that.
Well, and I noticed that the master's was an MS. And do you know why that was an MS and not an MA? Is that typical, or?
in the program I was in, that was just the way it was. And I think that's the designation that the master's degree has.
Yeah.
Is it's an MS at Oklahoma. So at least in psychology.
Well, maybe that's why you were, a researcher, and maybe there was more stats and science. I don't know.
There's a lot of emphasis on that in the program. That's for sure. So, yeah.
Okay. So you apply to the PhD program, you get your master's degree along the way.
Yeah.
And did they have multiple programs there and you chose social or?
Yeah, there was a social track. It was social and personality for whatever reason we're grouped together. I don't know why. I think it's still that way. But
I think they still are. Yeah.
I'm not sure why we do that. Yeah. But anyway, that was the way I went. There was cognitive. There was biological psych track you could do. There was a quantitative psychology track. But yeah, so I went that way.
But it was Dr. Ward, was it?
Dr. Ward, which is an interesting story.
Was she a social psychologist as well?
Yes, she was a social psychologist.
Okay.
So I was kind of going that, and that was what interested me the most. So that's a track I picked. She was my advisor. And then she got offered a position at the National Science Foundation, and she left.
Oh my. Yeah. So how many years did you have with her?
As a graduate student, just 1 year.
Okay.
So I worked with her as an undergrad. She had a lab, and I was like a undergraduate assistant after I took that class with her. So I worked with her as an undergrad, and then when I got into graduate school, I had 1 year, and then she was gone. So, yeah, that was too bad.
So who did you work closely with then for the rest of your...
So then I worked with a new hire at the time. It was Dr. Sarah Baker. She had just finished her PhD in social at Ohio State, and had a lot of overlapping interests with mine, which worked out great because I was able to continue to do what I wanted to do. And she became my advisor. Now, unfortunately, so basically what happened was I worked with Dr. Baker through my master's degree, and then she left. So I started to feel like it's me, right? Like whoever works with me leaves because Dr. Ward left, then Sarah Baker left, and then I worked with Richard Reardon after that, who I think felt bad for me. I don't know, but it felt like whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. I'll be there. I'll work with you on whatever you want to do. So I didn't have to switch what I was interested in, which was good, to find a faculty member to work with. He was willing to work with me on the stereotyping and prejudice things, even though that wasn't necessarily his, primary area of interest.
How did you get interested in that topic in particular?
I think it was actually, it grew out of an interest in World War II, believe it or not, which seems unrelated. But as a psychology major, I minored in history. And I was taking these classes that had to do with fascism and World War II and Germany and all these things. And so I got really interested in how does propaganda work, and how do you manipulate people to the extent that they're willing to do these things to other people? And that's really what sort of drew me into talking about it pulled me into racism and prejudice through that mechanism of looking at World War II of all things.
Yeah.
And then I got interested in racism and prejudice in the United States, and it just kind of all came together that way.
And it's what you're describing is still super relevant to what we're experiencing today.
Exactly, right? It is.
Wow.
It totally is.
So anything else we're missing about your PhD program? I mean, you did it. You came out of your neighborhood. Your mom told you could do something like this. You did it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you're Dr. Lewis.
Yeah, it's very
not
weird.
All of a sudden. I'm sorry. After a lot of hard work.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it was weird.
Yeah. What did your family think of Dr. Lewis?
Well, to be honest. The first thing one of my family members asked me was, does that mean you can prescribe medication?
Of course.
No.
Of course.
And so, like, no, I can't write your prescription. I'm sorry. Not that kind of doctor.
Wrong kind. Yeah.
So anyway, but I think, for them, I'm still, they don't see me as any different or anything like that. But yeah, well, they were interested in whether or not I could write prescriptions. So it was.
Okay. So what did you do after you got your PhD?
I got a job at the College of Worcester in Ohio, which is a small liberal arts college. And I actually loved it. It's a great place to work. And I was there for 4 years. But while I was living in Ohio, I met my now spouse.
Yeah.
And is long story, but I went to a conference that was in Denver. I had my college roommate from college lived in Denver. My roommate from college had a friend who knew this other person. I mean, it was like this whole thing. So we ended up meeting in Denver, Colorado. But she lived here in the Phoenix area. I was living in Worcester, Ohio. We met, and over time, over a couple of months, it became clear that one of us was going to have to move. It's like, if things keep going, one of us is going to have to move, because there was some travel, like I was traveling out, this way, she was traveling to Ohio. That wasn't going to keep working. So, Phoenix, big city. I thought there's got to be opportunities there. I'll move. So I resigned from Worcester and moved out here. So that's how I ended up here from there. But I started at Worcester, Ohio.
And was teaching a thing that you considered, even while you were getting your PhD? Were you teaching some classes? And
I was, I had the good fortune to be able to teach some classes on my own as a graduate student. I taught intro psych. I actually taught a personality class of all things, even though, I enjoyed it. And I discovered that I really liked teaching. Like it was fun for me to teach. I remember thinking, as a graduate student, I was getting paid, not a whole lot, but graduate student money, for teaching. And I thought, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. I would totally do this for free. This is fun,
Yeah.
So I really loved it. And then that job at Worcester, was the majority of that was teaching. I mean, there was a teaching emphasis there. I also got to work independently with, undergraduate students on research, because they were required to do that at Worcester. Students were required to do what other places would probably call a senior thesis project. They didn't call it that at Worcester. They called it senior independent study, but it was a senior research project, basically. So I worked with students independently and I taught, and there was a little bit of a research expectation, but there was a big focus on teaching, and I loved that.
Well, I can't imagine you must have loved teaching, because I can't imagine that like the Mesa job or the Glendale job. Mesa Community College?
Yes.
Mesa Community College and the Glendale Community College, kind of the two jobs you've had in Arizona, have heavy research component at all to them.
No. So, not at all.
Was that hard to let go of when you took those jobs?
Not really, because I love teaching so much, and I never would have guessed I would be at a community college. It never occurred to me. I mean, I never thought about it. It wasn't something that was talked about in my program. It's just not something that was on my radar screen. And then I was moving out here and looking for jobs, and I started looking at the Maricopa Community College District, and I'm like, wow, this looks pretty good. It's like, when you start looking, I started looking at it and thinking, this looks pretty interesting. I applied for a job. I got an interview at Mesa. I visited the campus, and I thought, this is not what I thought a community college would be. And the people, I don't know what I expected. I guess I don't know what my expectations were, but the faculty were amazing. When I met them, I thought, wow, this could really be a good job.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then luckily they hired me. So I got to work with them at Mesa, for a couple of years. And I learned that community colleges are fantastic places to work.
They are.
The teaching is great. The faculty are fantastic. The students are amazing. They're so diverse and so interesting. It's just a great place to work. Very different from working at a private liberal arts college in Ohio, for sure.
Right. So Mesa is for 2 years, and then you switch over in the same district. You switch over to Glendale Community College. Was the Mesa job was it a limited? Was it like a 1-year contract? Were they 1-year contracts or no?
No.
Okay.
The difficulty of Mesa was its location.
Oh.
So I was living it's hard to describe, but in the West Valley, in the Glendale area. And Mesa is far.
Okay.
It was, across the valley, on sort of the opposite side of Phoenix. And the commute, it was taking me an hour and 20 minutes, or so one way, in horrible traffic every day. So I was taking classes at teaching weird hours to try to avoid the traffic, because Phoenix traffic is awful. So I was teaching, some days I would start at 7:00 in the morning so that I would have to leave really early so I could beat the traffic. And then I could leave work fairly early on the way home to miss the rush hour, or I was teaching at night. So it was just to avoid the hour and 20 minutes or hour and a half stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
So that was actually the main reason for leaving Mesa and going to Glendale, was just the location. Right. Either we had to move to Mesa or I needed to switch schools. And we did some looking around at houses, and we ended up actually liking living in the West Valley.
Yeah.
So we decided.
So how far are you from Glendale now? Community college.
I am 13 miles from Glendale. My house is 13 miles from Glendale. My house at the house we were living in at the time was just over 40 miles from Mesa.
Okay.
And it literally took between an hour and 10 minutes and an hour and a half to get there.
Right. Yeah.
So it was bad. Now I get to work in about half an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. 20 years at Glendale Community College. What has changed over time for you as a as a faculty member?
Well, the main thing that's changed over time is when they hired me, I was the youngest, and now I'm not. Right? It's so weird. It's like
not the oldest, though.
No, I'm not technically the oldest, but I am the most senior, in years working there in my department right now. So that's weird. But in terms of the college, things come and go. So over time, our enrollment expanded and contracted and expanded and contracted. And we're in a time of contraction right now, post-COVID. So that's changed. The buildings have changed, so we've got new buildings, and that's changed. What hasn't changed is that Glendale has just an amazing faculty. It's a great place to work in terms of working with the other faculty members in our department and in other departments. That part hasn't changed. People are really dedicated to teaching, and student success is a big focus. Other things have changed around the edges. So administration has changed, those kinds of, they're sort of peripheral to the mission, in my opinion. Those things have changed, but the core has been great. And I think that's probably what's kept me at Glendale, is I can't imagine working with a different group of people, because they're just so good.
That's an awesome place to be. I think it's quite a gift. I don't know that everybody feels that way about that.
I agree.
Right?
I love my colleagues. There's
Yeah.
no doubt. I really do enjoy working with them. The folks in the psychology department are amazing. I have an amazing group of people I work with who get along, share information with each other. I would spend social time with them. They're like, people I enjoy being in their company.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true in every department, but in the psychology department that I'm in, it's like that. And
that's fantastic.
We really enjoy each other's company, even though we've had people come and go.
Yeah.
Certainly over the 20 years, there's been a lot of comings and goings, but that it has stayed the same. We've managed to create like an atmosphere of sharing and collegiality that's really, really nice. So I think that's absolutely, I think, what keeps me there.
What do you attribute that to? Do you have any theories about why that works there?
I think there was a time when it wasn't that way. When I was very first hired, it wasn't the same. There were some people who'd been there a long time who were very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some traditions that probably needed to go away. There were some attitudes about what the role was for new faculty,
mm-hmm.
That needed to change. And as some people retired and leadership in the department changed, I think some of those traditions of, treating new faculty like newbies who should not say anything, and those sorts of traditions went away, mm-hmm. and the department just became more friendly and collegial and welcoming new attitudes and opinions, and everybody has a voice, and hey, you're having trouble with coming up with something for your stat class, I've got this idea, do you want to try it? That kind of sharing started to happen more. And so there was basically a culture change, I think.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the teaching of psychology kind of world, like the national landscape of the teaching of psychology through STP, this is kind of what we see. The people who are attracted, at least in our discipline, to teaching are really collegial. Even nationally,
absolutely,
a lot of sharing. I think this could be the norm. Maybe this is the norm for teachers of psychology, or should be at least. But
I agree.
What you're describing is a lot of what I think people see nationally in STP, and then they want to be a part of that. Not everybody has it. Not everybody has it in their departments, and so maybe not everybody has to go out and look. If you do have it at close to home, maybe you don't have to go looking for it. But I think that's one of the things that STP does, is it provides a place for people to kind of come together and be like that, right?
I agree totally. Yeah. STP is great for that, no doubt.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I'm so glad that you've had this opportunity to be in like a great department and contribute in that way. What do you think is next for you? And that, like, where do you want to serve, and how do you what do you want to do on the side of teaching your students? Because you love doing that. What else do you want to do in the next, however long?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. Uh-huh. I'm always looking, one of the things that I don't want to do is just to become stagnant. Keep doing the same old thing over and over and over. Especially as I'm nearing, the latter part of my career, we'll put it that way.
Sure.
I've got another 10, 12 years, maybe. To do this. And so I have been giving a lot of thought to what I want to do during those last 10 or 12 years. And I'm not sure. I mean, I enjoy what I'm doing. I think I've kind of gotten a little bit away from working with students independently on research. I've had a lot of ideas about what I want to do, and then I haven't been pursuing it. So that's something that I want to get back into, like working with students independently again. Because I enjoy that so much. In terms of those service outside of that, I'm not sure what I want that to look like.
Yeah.
But I do know that I want to always be open to opportunities because you never know what's going to come down. And I always want to be, ready for whatever comes, because I don't want it to get stale. I don't want to be stagnant. I want to keep mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So see what that next thing is. I'm happy where I am.
Right. Well, I mean, it doesn't sound like you'd be happy. I mean, you have every right at this point in your career to say, hey, the next 10 years, I'm just going to focus on students and my job here and do that stuff. But you might not be happy if you're not curious and digging around a little bit, right?
Yeah. I do have to dig around a little bit. See what else comes along. You never know. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Well, I'll look forward to hearing about whatever that is next, and hopefully running into you. Will I see you at all this year? Are you planning to travel to any of the conferences this year?
I don't know. Lisa Worthy, who I was presenting with at WPA, she's got us into some international something or another in Hawaii.
Ooh, that's nice.
I don't know if I'm going yet, but I know we got accepted there, so I might do that. I'll probably do WPA again in this next year. I don't know if I'm going to be going to APA. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Next year, but I might. It just kind of depends.
What's that conference in Hawaii? Is it the education conference or is it psychology conference?
It's a more general education conference, and I can't remember what it's called. It's international.
Is it the Hawaii International Conference on Education?
Yes. I'll
see
in
January?
You there. Are you going to be there?
I don't know. It looks great.
Yeah.
January 3rd through 6th.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah. So theoretically, we're presenting there.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah. So I may go. I haven't decided yet if I'm going or if she's going to present without me. But
well, Arizona, it doesn't have the beaches, but it's kind of nice, like Hawaii all year round. So
January is a good time in the Phoenix area. So yeah, I don't feel as much of a need to go off to Hawaii, but they do have beaches. So.
In Seattle, it's about that time in January where we are just losing our minds and need to go to either Arizona or to Hawaii. Those are short trips, at least one flight away. LaDonna, hey, thanks for your time. It's really nice to sit down with you and chat today.
That's nice to talk to you too, Garth. Thank you so much for thinking of me. This was fun.
Of course, yes. And I'll look forward to running into you maybe at WPA, or I don't know, I'll see you on the beach maybe in Oahu.
Yeah. Maybe you'll hop on a committee and I'll be on the same committee. Who knows?
That would be fun. We ought to do that. That would be good. Yeah. All right. Take care.
You too. Thanks, Garth.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Listeners, we want to invite you to be among the first to know who and what's coming up on the Psych Sessions podcast. Join our opt-in email list, just like hundreds of psychology instructors have already done. We promise not to fill your inboxes. When we email you bi-weekly or monthly, it will be something that means something. From new series announcements to new opportunities, we invite you to join the mission to get free, high-quality professional development to all teachers of psychology. So sign up for our opt-in email list. Just go to bit.ly/psych sessions-email. That's all lowercase bit.ly/psych sessions-email.